The sun was setting low over the western plains, painting the sky in streaks of gold and fire. The air was thick with the scent of dust, dry grass, and the faint whisper of a world that seemed to have slowed down to listen. The old wooden barn creaked softly as the wind passed through its gaps, and the world was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the rhythmic creak of a rocking bench. On that bench sat the man they called the Giant Cowboy. Nobody really knew where he came from. Not anymore. Some said he'd been a ranch hand up north. Others swore he used to be a lawman until something broke inside him. But one thing everyone agreed on: he was a man built of silence, broad shoulders, weathered hands, and eyes that carried the weight of 100 sunsets. He didn't smile, not really. He didn't talk much either. He just worked, fixed what needed fixing, and disappeared when the world got too close. That evening, he was just sitting there, elbows on his knees, hat tilted low, watching the last of the sunlight dance on the dry fields. His shirt, sleeveless, frayed, and faded, clung to him, showing a strength earned from years under the sun. He looked like someone carved out of the land itself, solid, immovable, and maybe a little broken. And that's when he heard it. Small footsteps, light, quick, almost like the sound of a bird hopping on dry leaves. Then a giggle. When he looked up, he saw her. A little girl in a blue denim dress, brown boots, and hair tied back in a messy ponytail. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, and yet she stood there with her hands on her hips, like she'd been sent by heaven itself to remind him what courage looked like. "Hey, mister," she said, tilting her head up to meet his shadow. He blinked, unsure if she was real or just some trick of the dying light. "Hey, yourself," he finally said, his voice gravelly from disuse. The little girl smiled. "You look lonely." He chuckled softly, a sound that surprised even him. "That's so," she nodded, deadly serious. "Yep, my mama says lonely people need someone to talk to. But I think—" She paused, tapping her chin in exaggerated thought. "You need more than that." The cowboy leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "And what would that be?" The girl took a deep breath, squared her tiny shoulders, and said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You need a wife," she declared. "And I need a dad." The world seemed to stop. The wind stilled. The last ray of sunlight caught her hair, making it glow like a halo. He stared at her, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or run. No one had spoken to him like that in years, not since the day he lost everything. He swallowed hard. "That's so," he murmured, his voice softer now. "Mm-hmm." She nodded with confidence. "You're big and strong and nice, I can tell. And Mama says, nice men are hard to find. So, you could be my dad." He turned his head, following her gaze toward the dirt road that led to the old wagon in the distance. A woman knelt beside it, fighting with a stubborn wheel that refused to move. Her dress was simple, her hair loose, her posture tired but steady, like someone who'd learned how to survive without expecting help. "That your mama?" he asked quietly, Yep, the girl's voice softened. She works too much, smiles too little. I think she forgot how. For a moment, the cowboy said nothing. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first cool breath of night brushed against his skin. He'd spent years running from people, from memories, from the ghost of a woman he couldn't save. And yet, standing there was a child who spoke like she could see straight into the hollow places of his heart. He sighed, rising slowly to his full height. The girl gasped. He was huge, towering, the kind of man who made the world seem smaller. But his eyes were kind, even behind the roughness of his face. "You shouldn't be talking to strangers, little miss," he said, resting his hat against his chest. The girl grinned, fearless. "You don't feel like a stranger. You feel like the ending to our story." He froze. There was something in the way she said it, like she believed it, like she'd been waiting her whole short life for this moment. Before he could find words, the girl took his hand, her small fingers wrapped around his calloused palm, and for the first time in years, the cowboy didn't pull away. "Come on," she said, tugging gently. "Mama won't admit it, but she needs help, and maybe you do too." He hesitated, staring down at the tiny hand clutching his own. There was a warmth there, something unfamiliar, something dangerous. He'd buried that kind of feeling long ago. But the girl looked up with eyes full of trust, and something inside him cracked open. He followed. Each step toward that wagon felt heavier than the last, not from fear, but from memory. The last time he'd offered help, he'd lost everything, but this time felt different. The woman straightened as they approached, brushing dust from her skirt. Her eyes met his, wary at first, then curious. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, voice soft but edged with caution. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the little girl announced proudly, "Mama, this is my new dad." The woman's eyes widened. The cowboy's did too, and for a long, silent second, time just stopped.